Hello, good afternoon. I'd like to welcome and introduce Dr. Robert Murphy, Executive Director of the Havey Institute for Global Health and the John Philip Fair Professor of Infectious Diseases here at Northwestern's Feinberg School of Medicine, who answers your COVID questions and addresses the latest COVID news every Tuesday and Thursday here on the Havey Institute for Global Health's Facebook page. And today, Dr. Murphy will be answering your questions and addressing the latest COVID headlines through today, the 24th of February. And we invite you to continue to submit your questions to us, both via Facebook at NU Institute for Global Health or via email at globalhealthinstitute@northwestern.edu. And leading the discussion again today is Sophie Buskowski, who is a student research assistant with the Institute. So Sophie, I now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kristen. Hi, Dr. Murphy.
Morning.
For some updated COVID statistics. In the United States, we are seeing about a 7-day average of 89,000 positive cases per day. Yesterday, we saw 84,706 positive cases. We have a booster shot rate of about 28%, but fortunately, what we are seeing in the United States is a huge decrease in hospitalizations, 44% over the last 14 days, and deaths, 26% over the last 14 days. And looking very, very positive is Illinois right now. Illinois has a 14-day average of about 2,723 positive cases, which is huge. I mean, 2 weeks ago, we were seeing numbers in the tens. And the death rate and the hospitalization rate of Illinois have both decreased by 34 and 50%, which is also really, really exciting news. What can you tell us about these numbers in Illinois as, Chicago public schools and other schools are thinking about going mask optional?
Well, no, it's great. It's still coming down. It's not zero, but it's certainly going in the right direction. And, the mask mandates are ending on Monday. Today is Thursday. And that doesn't mean that Monday, everything is like totally normal. That's not the case. It's just going in the right direction, and we don't have to mandate some of these mitigations. Many groups are going to continue with the mitigations. They're going to continue with mask mandates for their business or school or whatever. In the first month or two after the government mandates are lifted, it's going to be very interesting to see really what happens, if this is working or not. But particularly if you have some underlying immunocompromising condition, or you're over 65, or you have something else is going on, please continue to be careful. It's not over yet, but it's getting better.
Now for one of our big COVID headlines. Quote, "We're doing everything we can to survive," end quote. As the US looks to move on from COVID-19, high-risk and disabled Americans feel forgotten. What can you tell us about this really unfortunate headline and story that CNN has pushed out?
Yeah, this is very unfortunate in that 1 in 4 Americans has some type of underlying chronic disease that makes them very high risk for developing severe complications, including hospitalization and actually even death. And we have to remember this as these government mandates are lifted. The people who are at high risk should still be very careful. They should still wear masks when they're out in public. And they should be careful where they go and how they congregate and who they congregate with. As we go a couple months, weeks or months into this kind of looser restriction era, we'll see how much disease is really out there. But they're going to have to be careful until this really, really calms down.
Yeah, absolutely. And now for a second big COVID headline. New studies bring BA.2 variant into sharper focus. What can you tell us about this stealth Omicron variant and what there are 2 new studies are finding?
Yeah, well, first of all, BA.2 can happen after BA.1. So that's already been reported. And BA.2, because it's more transmissible, in this most recent report you're referring to, it was 30%, but I've heard as much as 50% more from other groups. In the United States, it's now 20% of all the variants. Illinois is a little bit less than that. But in South Africa, it's gone from 27% to 86% as all BA.2. Now, it's behaving very similar to BA1 other than the fact that it's easier to transmit. But in the animal models that they use to study this thing, the animals have more severe disease. Humans, we're not really quite sure yet if it's more severe or not. Remember, BA1, the original Omicron, actually had less severe disease. So we don't know if it's as bad as Delta or somewhere in between, and we don't really know. Probably it's somewhere in between Delta and Omicron, but I'm just guessing there. I don't know, but it is taking over, and this is what the WHO was really concerned about the other week, about lifting all these mandates now, because we could just have another big bump of this BA2 stealth variant. So we've got to be careful and we've got to be vigilant and see how this plays out.
Yeah, absolutely. And now for our third big COVID headline, and this is an interesting shift of events. There is now a time change between Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines can be up to 8 weeks for some people. So between the first and the second shot, there seems to be an 8-week change. What can you tell us about this new update of the CDC guidelines?
Yeah, that guideline came out this morning and caught me by a little bit of surprise. Now the Johnson & Johnson vaccine study where they did the 2 doses were 2 months apart. The mRNA vaccines were only 3 and 4 weeks apart for the Pfizer and Moderna respectively. And the reasoning for this is that they think the 2 reasons. The immunologic response may actually be stronger if you spread it out a little bit. That's been noticed already, that the people that got sort of a late vaccination, some of their immunologic responses were greater. The other thing is that maybe the side effects with the second vaccine, second dose, would be less, particularly in kids. So put all those things together, and there was enough data to have the CDC say be 8 weeks apart for dose 1 and dose 2 if you're just starting out in the vaccination process, unless you're a high-risk patient and you really have to boost up your immunity quickly. And then you go back to the original 3 and 4 weeks. So that was just released this morning.
Yeah, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Now for our first COVID question. My sister got her COVID vaccine. My sister got her COVID vaccination and booster. All were Moderna. Shortly after getting the booster, she got shingles.
Mm-hmm.
She was supposed to get the 2-part shingles shot, but then she got fear over, too many vaccinations. Now she's blaming the COVID-19 booster for her shingles. What can you tell us about this connection between shingles and the vaccine for COVID?
Well, this has been going on for a while, where these cases of shingles were reported after the vaccine. There have been several studies. I was reviewing them a little bit earlier. One had 54 cases. Most of the people were at risk for getting shingles. So we don't know, if there's really a cause and effect. And there have been multiple reports out there, and there's still no definitive link. But we know that there are some neurologic complications after vaccines, particularly after the Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca vaccine, the viral vector vaccines, but even with the mRNA vaccines. And your immune system is getting all stoked and everything, and who knows why that happens. But the link is not confirmed. This is not a definitive statement, and regardless, it's pretty rare. We're talking about 45 cases in one study being reported of, hundreds of millions of people in the United States, the 400 million doses that have been given, and worldwide, billions of doses. It's certainly not any kind of epidemic of shingles. So this person really should wait until everything has calmed down with them, with the shingles and everything, and get the shingles vaccine as well.
Right. No, absolutely. And now for another question regarding vaccinations. This individual is approaching their 1-year mark from receiving their first and second COVID-19 shots. Should they be rescheduling appointments to revaccinate? I'm going to assume, Dr. Murphy, that this person is not boosted.
Yeah, so this person just needs their booster. So they can get boosted with either the Moderna 50 micrograms or the Pfizer. And even though they're late, they will have a response. And like I said, maybe the response might be greater because it's a little bit later. Who knows? We don't know. But anyway, it's not going to hurt you. Get the booster. You'll be even more protected.
Absolutely. Now for the third question. This individual received J&J vaccine in March, then Pfizer in November. Should they get another booster? This morning you answered some of these questions about Moderna on the WGN, but what about Pfizer?
Yeah, so this person doesn't need another booster at this particular point because the J&J vaccine as a single shot is actually the best vaccine out there. They get the biggest response with the one dose. Now, it turns out 2 doses work better, and if you get boosted with an mRNA vaccine, it works even better, but you only need the one shot. Now, if a second booster is ever approved in this country, then you would go ahead and get another booster shot of the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine or whatever is approved at the time that happens. Remember, the second booster shots are approved in Israel for elderly people, Sweden, actually age 80 and over, and South Korea. Those, I believe, are the only places that have that booster. There may be a few others, but it's limited to the super high risk people, super high risk for hospitalization and death.
And now for our third COVID question. This is a rather long one, so bear with me. 2 weeks ago, this individual's husband got sick, fever, chills, diarrhea, nausea. 4 days later, this individual had the exact same symptoms. It was the sickest they'd ever been. At first, they thought it was food poisoning, except that they had not eaten the same thing. 3 days later, their adult daughter got the same thing. They're all vaccinated and boosted and wear masks and only go to the grocery store. They took a rapid test and it came back negative, but then their daughter's fiance tested positive. All of this to say, is it possible to have something other than COVID with all of these symptoms and have one person test positive?
Yes. This is not the typical presentation for COVID. And it's getting late in the game here that a negative test is not going to really rule out whether or not you had COVID or not. And so I think it's a little bit too late. The one rapid test while you're sick tells me that, that's when the rapid tests are the most positive, is when you actually have symptoms and stuff. So, there's plenty of other diseases floating around out there that can explain this. And so I can't answer the question yes or no, but it doesn't look like it. There's other things, and there's with so much COVID out there, there is still a lot that you're going to see that just kind of mixed in with everything else. So I don't think this is a case of unusual COVID and the way it was spread. It's spreading like a typical kind of gastroenteritis type virus.
Yeah, completely. Well, Dr. Murphy, those were all of our COVID questions for today. We will see you on Thursday.
Great. Thank you.